On the Vault Report.
Marketing Dividends, presented by the Australian Association of National Advertisers, inspiring responsible, innovative and respected marketing.
Hi, I'm James Heyer from Wavemaker. Welcome to Marketing Dividends. This week we're in Canberra with three marketing leaders to discuss data and disruption.
We need to start moving again, Australia. Moving as though our lives depend on it. Every one of us needs to target at least 30 minutes of heart rate raising physical activity a day. Because if we don't move it, we'll lose it. Search Find Your 30.
It's the government agency that ensures Australia remains a gold medal sporting nation. The Australian Sports Commission has gone through a rebrand this month, now known to the community as Sport Australia. Established in the early 1980s, it's responsible for making Australia a force to be contended with on the world stage. Off the field, it tackles the social issues like gender diversity and sexual harassment to bring a fairer state of play to Aussie sport. Canberra is dubbed the cycling capital of the nation, so it's only fitting that billion-dollar bike maker Trek Cycles chose the ACT for its Asia-Pac headquarters. Whether you're on the road, on a trail or taking a leisurely lakeside ride, Canberra is full of pedal power. And paving the way for a smooth ride between business and government is the aim of Capitol Hill Advisory. Based in the heart of Canberra, the firm builds critical links between the private sector and public policymakers.
Our panel is Steph Lovett from Capitol Hill Advisory, Ian Callahan from Trek Bicycle Corporation, and Louise Ayres from the Australian Sports Commission. Let's pick up that conversation. First, Steph, I'd like to start with you. In marketing, we talk about our target audiences, and they tend to be quite large segments. But if I think about your target audience and, you know, how tight it is, and the government ministers and the politicians that you probably know and can name them, how does that work in terms of what we would call a media mix? How would you reach them? And do you have everything at your disposal, or are there just very few limited ways of getting into this target audience?
Yeah, I suppose that from a first principles point of view, we would say our best audience is a direct personal relationship. So we tend not to do things in the media as a first point of call. Most of the time we'll do it behind the lines, so we want to make sure the politician hears a message in person first. But having said that, there will be times when we need to make sure that we can distribute our message more widely. So when an issue becomes a more public issue, when it starts to be played out in the media, we certainly want an opportunity to engage in that space. But we might also undertake a campaign, for example, and that would involve all sorts of media. So we might have social media campaign, paid advertising, the whole gamut becomes at our disposal then.
And that is still considered lobbying, so you don't just think of lobbying as below the line, it can be in any sort of channel.
Yeah, so from right through from working on a formal election campaign to a campaign on a particular issue, change for public policy, wanting to make sure you've got the right messaging in the public space can be done through a variety of mediums, and we work with a range of clients to make sure that they can appropriately, you know, sell their message or share their message with their key stakeholders, but the wider public as well.
Great. And Louise, I said you're the first CMO. What do you think changed the Australian Sports Commission's perspective on this discipline, and what is your remit?
Yeah, thanks. Well, it's really reflecting on that, and the chance to almost create a marketing startup within a federal government agency is an amazing challenge. And I think the previous 30 years of the Sports Commission, we've really been a B2B business. So we were funding the Australian sports sector through really the national sporting organisations, so Basketball Australia, Swimming Australia, etc. But I think as the community's definition of sport has changed, far more about physical activity, unorganised sport. We recognised that we had to become a B2C business as well, and we have to get Australia moving, and that was really the foundation for changing the brand. So now operating as Sport Australia, and also the platform, rather than even a campaign, but the platform of Move It Australia is to have that direct connection with Australians and start that behaviour change journey.
Right, and I think there's a common theme here with a really interesting, different type of marketing. People who've never had marketing before. And Ian, if I reflect on John Burke, the president of Trek Bicycle Corporation and the son of the founder, I think that always helps.
Yes, yep.
He said, if we get the product right, great product, and if the customer experience is fantastic, the company will grow. I didn't hear marketing in that.
Well, I'm obviously biased. I think marketing has a very big role to play in that. I think what John was referencing in that interview was probably more broadly speaking some of the key principles that have defined the company mission over time, which has taken the company from basically zero to a $1 billion company. And whilst it sounds simplistic, delivering best-in-class products, providing incredible hospitality for our customers, and fundamentally wanting more people to get involved in bikes is what we base our business on. So I guess from a marketing perspective, my role is to take those guiding principles and relay it to the market and the end consumer in the most compelling way possible. And if our proposition is we've got awesome product and we're going to look after you, and fundamentally we want to build a better world with bikes, we feel that's a pretty engaging principle to take to market.
Right, and I don't think there's any business or company that isn't undergoing or feel that they're undergoing massive disruption and change. And if I look at lobbying, it feels that you're almost being disintermediated. And what I mean by that is every citizen is almost a lobbyist now. I can tweet to my local poly, and I feel like I'm having that interaction that before was massive letter writing campaigns, and there feel to be that distance between us and the government. Are you feeling disenfranchised?
No, I mean you could start a Twitter war with the President of the United States. But
I'd lose.
I think we're in a really unique position as a sector at the moment, that whole period of disruption and the notion of innovation and big data and that whole social media space actually provides a unique opportunity for us to engage with politicians in a medium in which they're forced to engage. So a lot of them are starting to find that they need to have a stronger online presence. They are getting campaigns targeted at them from groups like Get Up and others, so they don't have a choice but to engage. But what that means is for some of our clients is they can take that from a positive point of view, and we can help them do that to actually support government or support initiatives and engage in a public policy space which is not traditional for them. Anybody can be a lobbyist, technically, but it's the relationships that we have with those politicians, and we often say it's our ability to speak the language of politics to business and vice versa that is a skill in itself, and not everybody has that skill that they can transfer, whether it's in an online platform or otherwise.
Right, and talking of disruption, and it makes the news on an ongoing basis, is this whole spread of bike sharing. And there's incredible pictures from China with just literally thousands of bikes dumped in a river.
Yes.
It seems to be sort of aligned with your purpose of wanting more people on bikes.
Yep.
Is this a positive or a negative for Trek, this enormous number of bikes? And just to follow that, I see Uber has invested in Lime Bike. They're recruiting people in Australia. Bike sharing hasn't necessarily taken off here yet.
Yes.
How are you viewing it?
It's an interesting one to look at. I think bike sharing around the world has sort of merged its way into most metropolitan areas. There's a common theme in Europe. Trek invested in a company 10 years ago in the US and a lot of major metropolitan areas there. The China example is probably the most visible one globally, in the fact that almost overnight millions of these dockless, cheap share bikes were delivered to all the major metro areas of Beijing and Shanghai and Shenzhen and Guangzhou. So if you take a step back and look at why that occurred, I mean, obviously it's filling a need for the customer. The need for a cheap, effective way to transport themselves in China was needed. Bike sharing has come in and delivered that service. So the opportunist in me says, great, we've got millions more people riding bikes in China. What's our proposition to take to that market to say, you're using it for current purpose now, we want you to take that away from a trend, add to the transit function that you're using at the moment, but there's leisure benefits, there's social benefits, and there's a whole lot of other social benefits that riding a bike can do. So we look at it as an opportunity as well as a challenge.
Right. So are you the upsell on that sort of casual biker?
Potentially. The experience, the user experience on those bikes may not necessarily be fundamentally great, which is a key component to what we offer. So if there's more people riding bikes, yes, tick. More people riding maybe a higher quality product is where we're going.
Right. When we're asking about the remit of marketing, you were talking about getting Australia moving. And the question I have with that is, it seems to be what everyone's trying to do. I think every state has this type of communication. FedGov has been trying to do it. What is your particular lens on it that would be different, or it's going to give us a better chance of this actually happening?
Yes. Well, I think some of the campaigns that have come through from either a state level or a federal level, we work with those teams to share and learn, because they've gone before us, but they might have been targeting a particular segment of the population, whereas from a Sport Australia perspective, we're looking at a nationwide initiative to get Australia moving, and looking at it more from an attitude perspective, because we know there's a group that we're calling the ponderers, and that was certainly me. So we know we need to be more active. We know we need to get off the couch and behind our desks, and we're actually taking an approach that's more looking at attitude and behaviour change, and how can we give Australians those couple of tips to find their 30. And that's again something we've brought it really down to a tactical action. So how do you find 30 minutes a day of physical activity? So if you can break it down into something that is consumable and manageable, we hope that will be the long-term trend to get Australia moving.
And is that what you want? You want others to take that into the different states and use it? I mean, is there something that you're putting out there so that others can use, versus you just push it out yourself?
Absolutely, and that's why I'm not being flippant by saying it's not a campaign, but it's a platform. So we're working with the national sporting organisations, and we want to work with brands, with businesses, to actually say Move It Australia is your campaign as well. So what does Move It look like in the insurance category? What does Move It look like for sporting organisations, and actually work with them in quite an open source kind of way to actually say you can be creative partners, content partners, you can be our distribution. And I think that's one of the benefits of being a government agency versus perhaps previous ASX 20. It actually can be the platform of the community.
I find this intriguing. I mean, Vic government pulled over the very successful This Girl Can campaign from the UK.
Yes.
Literally plug and play. It's worked. State governments, they shouldn't think of themselves as in competition. They just want to do the right thing for the tax dollar. They've put it in place. But the federal government created something similar but their own. Girl, Make Your Move.
Girls Make Your Move, yes.
Why don't they just plug and play? If something's working, why aren't we just adopting it? That there's finite money, resources, capability. Probably that's the confusing part.
Good question. But the action is we have come together. So this is another example of that collaboration. So Vic Health, Department of Health and ourselves recognising that we're all focusing on physical activity platforms and programs, we have come together. So we do share, we're sharing our measures and metrics, we're sharing what's worked and what hasn't, and identifying the results that we're seeing from complementary audiences. So that is an example, as you say, where it's state and federal, Labor coalition, but we're actually coming together because we recognise that we are talking to the same consumer, and we need to work together. So we have a very open and transparent relationship, really as a coordinated group of marketers, not seeing those structural boundaries, but actually saying, what do we do to improve the health and the physical condition of Australia as a nation?
You have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk.
Big government. I can't stand it.
You have no legitimacy in this job at all.
Barber Tony works 6 days a week with his 7 employees, and by leaving his small business tax to me, he can enjoy 8 more hours of beekeeping. At H&R Block, we're fascinated by numbers. Book an appointment today.
So I was whitening my smile with a photo filter. My friend said, why not whiten in real life? I wondered, does that even work? She said, Oral-B 3D White really whitens.
Oral-B 3D White toothpaste removes up to 95% of stains in 3 days.
See, your smile looks great.
Oral-B. Brush like a pro.
Choose wisely. You chose wisely.
For a foil that's 100% recycled, choose wisely. Choose Multix.
Looking for a hotel? Nobody beats Mr. Convincing on price.
Really? Their price? Hotels Combined Price. Their price? Hotels Combined Price. Don't be fooled. Before you book, check Hotels Combined.
Hotels Combined. For myself and you, I know this love is true. And I never, 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 never let you go. First talk, first touch, first night. I'm so happy, not like back then. I never thought I'd fall in love again.
There is always someone for each of us, they say, and you'll be my someone forever and a day. I could search the world over until my life is through, but I know I'll never find
Trapping a dog in a hot car is a crime. Trapping thousands of sheep in a hot ship is a business. Let's end live export. Authorised by Animals Australia, Melbourne.
If I start with you, Steph, I mean, again, just the data that you have on your target audience, you've probably met them, you have chemistry, they're probably all on your phone. Most marketers would kill to have that level of currency on their audience. Do you need big data?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
Tell me why.
Well, from a campaign perspective, you know, for us, for an election campaign or a public policy campaign, to understand who the individuals are that are relevant, or companies for that matter, where they're located and if they're in a marginal seat is absolute gold. And so you can then target and hone a message. The next federal election could be won on 1 or 2 seats. For us to be able to make sure that our clients and their message can target the right politicians in the right way is fundamental, and access to data and information is going to be critical to that, to us, our clients, but also the political parties. So in politics, data is
right.
gold.
Just talking about, you know, wanting to have that end-to-end relationship, you're one step removed, because with Trek you're selling through retailers. So I'm wondering, how do you actually build and use data to grow your customer base and do better marketing?
Sure, I think the traditional way of our business model has been the retailer has the end interaction with the customer. So I guess twofold from our perspective is encouraging that relationship. The end relationship between a customer and a local bike shop is a very emotional and strong one, and we're trying to encourage our retailers to be better at what they do and offer a better customer experience. So we're educating our retailers to improve their customer interaction. From a brand level, we're trying to get more direct communication with the end consumer as well. It benefits us and it benefits the end consumer. And a lot of ways that we're doing that is around our warranty processes, our product information, and providing an avenue for feedback from post-purchase all the way back to us at a corporate level. So there is the retail experience that we operate in, but obviously a lot of our communication these days is done digitally, and we have a lot of channels where we can have that one-to-one interaction and collect data and then use that to improve our business practices.
And talk about lessening barriers for entry. I'm just reflecting on the 30 minutes you're wanting from me every day, and it still feels a lot. You've brought together 12 different sports to try and help coordinate this effort. They're all incredibly competitive because they're all competing for my 30 minutes as well. They want me to participate in their sports, not the other sports. It's a share battle. How on earth are you bringing them together, and why do they see the value in working with each other?
Yes. Well, when I first suggested this idea of having a Marketing 12 sort of sports version of the G8, people said, "You're mad, it's never going to happen." But I think as we've discussed here, and we recognise as marketers that we are talking to the same consumer, and it was by bringing those marketers together who are competitors. They're often seasonally the same, broadcast rights, but recognising that we do have a shared agenda, and coming together and saying, what are the issues that you're tackling in your sport or your industry? And we've created that agenda of the Marketing 12 together, and there is a recognition that we need to grow the pie for all to benefit. So different sports have connections with consumers at different parts of your life stage. You might come into a sport, come out. You might actually take it to being more a kick in the park than something formalised. But if we don't have a nation of active, healthy Australians, no one will win. So I think coming in and recognising that if we work together, we grow the pie for all, has really been the fundamental glue that brings us together. And it is around sharing research and insights, sharing our data discussions, sharing Move It Australia as a platform that we can all use. But I think bringing together, and we created that agenda together.
What's the trajectory right now of people's participation? Is it going up? Is it flat? Is it going down?
Well, it is going down, and particularly at certain age points, so that is why you've seen the emphasis on young women. So from the age of 15 we see participation coming down, but also as parents we're standing around watching our children play sport. We're not doing enough, and so particularly in the adult population our activity levels are not meeting the required guidelines, and that's where with that Find Your 30, one of the tips will be, we all drop our children to sport early so they warm up and practice, and we just stand there for that 20 or 30 minutes. There's your 30, James. So while your children are warming up for their sport, you warm up, and then you're there and you can still be watching them while they're playing. But I think we just have to bring those little nudges into our mindset to say, actually, when am I stationary and when should I be moving?
Right, and which marketers or brands, if any, help you understand how you can do, better lobbying efforts?
For us, it's about looking at PR, communications and marketing firms where, they represent themselves well as an individual business as much as they look after their clients and they represent those clients well. For me, it's about, our relationships are the core to our business in terms of our stakeholders, being politicians and their staff, as much as it is the public sector, our clients and other customers. So for me, credibility is core to who we are as a brand. our believability in the message that we share to our clients and then to politicians, and the relationships and the way that we interact. Because if we don't have a high degree of credibility, you know, our job is that much harder. Clients won't come to us, and that's a problem. So the way we represent ourselves as a business is core.
And that makes absolute sense. I mean, PR always talks about reputation.
And for us, reputation is key.
Great. And you're based here because Canberra,
yes.
because this is where all the government, FedGov is based.
And our AIS campus.
Which is beautiful. I'm intrigued, Ian, why you're based here. It's not your APAC, which means in terms of population centres, even in Australia, this is not it.
Yes.
What's the reason for you being based here?
Well, I think it comes back to some of the comments we made earlier of us trying to support communities that support cycling. I think Canberra is very underrated in the facilities that we have at our doorstep here. World-class mountain biking tracks, a beautiful bike path network. The road network is set up
Do you cycle to work?
I do cycle to work, yes. So from a company perspective, and it's not just here in APAC and Australia, it's around the world, we do support the communities and the governments that support cycling infrastructure. And when we bring partners out here and we bring vendors in to have a look, they are also amazed at what we have at our doorstep here in Canberra. So it's one of the best-in-class examples that we have around the world of trying to keep that moving forward and the lobbying for better cycling infrastructure.
Great. Okay, well, on that note, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was enthralling, and thank you very much for coming this morning.
Yeah, thanks, James.
Thank you.
That's it from Marketing Dividends Series 3. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from the different cities around Australia, the challenges facing marketers and how they're dealing with them.